You're listening to Real Radio, the nationally trusted name in real estate investing. We dig deep to discover investors' why in real estate. If you want to skip all the BS and get in investors' heads, you're in the right spot. Be one of the thousands to check out realradio.com.
I never in my entire life, and this is true, not one time have I applied for a job, ever. Anyone can succeed because the baseline tools for building a business and engaging with a client base and finding new opportunities are essentially the same today that they were when I started, that they were when they wrote Think and Grow Rich, that they were when they wrote some of the Stoicism stuff. Human beings haven't changed. The technology around us has changed, that's true, but a human being really hasn't evolved much. The reptilian brain, the forward-thinking brain, the emotional context of how we're made up, none of that has really changed in the last, 10,000 years.
Welcome to Real Radio, episode 224 with Kirk Jaffe.
First take. Good job, Ted.
Yeah, thank you.
Kirk, welcome to the show. Thanks for coming on, man. Happy Friday. I have a question for you. So I spent about 20 years in recruiting. So I was in corporate recruiting, agency recruiting, all kinds of recruiting. I've looked at probably hundreds of thousands of resumes. And whenever I saw someone that had consultant listed on their resume, it generally meant they were unemployed and looking for a job. And they were consulting in air quotes. But it seems that you are actually a legitimate consultant based on our research and the bio we have for you. What are you involved in now? Because it seems really cool, but a little bit hard to describe for a layperson like Ted.
Yeah, thanks for asking. My background is pretty diverse. So I started out as a professional chef out of college.
Oh, wow.
And ended up going through culinary school and working in the highest end restaurants, and ended up on a private yacht working for a guy worth about, $1 billion or more. And from that, after I decided to stop cooking, I moved out to Los Angeles and got into real estate. And so what seems on my resume, like, how do you do all this stuff, is really just a compilation of all my experiences since I was really about 16 years old. I never in my entire life, and this is true, not one time have I applied for a job, ever.
No way. Ever?
Not one time.
Not even like Radio Shack or anything?
Nothing. I've always networked my way into a job, into a place, never put a resume out, always networked my way in. I ended up in LA running the third largest default loan servicer in the United States that had everything under one roof. And even that job I had actually applied for, but no one responded. So what I did was I built a schematic of their entire company. They were 13 companies at the time with 13 brands. And they were worried that if the world at large knew that they covered all these different areas, they wouldn't want to work with them. There'd be conflicts. And I walked in there with the schematic. I rolled it on the table with 3 or 4 copies of different books I had written. And I laid out their business to them, which was hidden from the world. And they were like, and I went in there to be a salesperson. And then they said, well, can you be our chief operating officer? I go, sure. So now I'm running this $20 million company, and I built 3 more companies for them. So they became 16, and we raised it up to 36 million of revenue. And it was great. So in that process of building companies, finding my own job, figuring out how to market myself, educating myself on sales, this is how I became a consultant, because a lot of people they don't know how to present themselves. And really any business that knows how to present themselves correctly is going to have a better shot at succeeding, right? What do we know? Something like 90% of businesses fail in the first couple of years, right?
And then it's another 90% that fail over the next 5 years, or they make it 5 years and then they
and then they tank. Yeah. So I've been at this 25 years, and even when I worked for that big company, I looked at myself as an intrapreneur, not an entrepreneur. And not an employee, certainly. So I think that's how I did it, and that's how I teach other people now to take their businesses and kind of turn them on their ear a little bit, think a little creatively, and create their own market. That's what we're really teaching people how to do, because the market's changed. I mean, we're in it right now. Another big shift in all of our worlds is happening as we're sitting here, right?
Okay, so you obviously did some really cool stuff for this company and creating basically 3 new offshoots and rolled it up under that same portfolio. I guess what started you on the path of being a paid consultant? Was it something to where you kept getting people that were asking you for advice all the time about various things, and then you said, God, I spend so much time on this, maybe I should get paid for it? Is that how that worked, or like what were the mechanics of the decision to kind of like go all in on consulting?
Yeah, it was twofold. Part of what you just said, right? I have all these skills, and for some reason people ask me questions and I know the answer, and then they are able to implement my answer and make money. So that was one thing. The other thing that happened was when I was early on in my career, I knew I needed a lot of education, sales education and marketing. So I went to every single thing I could get my hands on. I think I spent like $250,000 over a 5 or 7 year period just going to every training I could get my hands on. And I went one day and there were like 12 people from the stage doing their pitch, whatever. Learned some cool stuff. I learned about facial recognition, which I still use today in my sales world. The last guy that got up was a fellow named Joel, and he talks for 45 minutes. At the end of the 45 minutes, 750 out of 1,200 people take their credit card out before they even get out of their seat. He had everyone take their credit card out, and they table rushed the back of the room to buy a $3,000 product. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching this, and I was one of the people, right? I was like, this is great. I go, I don't want to be a seller from the stage. I'm not that guy, but I need to know how to move mass amounts of people whenever I say so. And that's how you make money in business. You got to be able to convince your buying pool that they want to buy from you ultimately. So I started studying with this guy. I still study with him. He's one of my mentors. And we'll talk about that later, I think. But I learned that how you present yourself, how you price yourself, how you craft and package your solution is everything. And that, along with, while I was working at that big company, I had 200 employees, and I really am not a great manager. I'm more of an entrepreneur than a manager, right? There's the technicians, the managers, the entrepreneurs. I'm a great technician and a great entrepreneur, but I'm terrible at management. So I didn't want any more employees. And that drove me to be a full-time consultant where I use vendors. I have maybe 3 or 4 people that work with me. One of them is my wife, so that's a little bit easier. Harder for some, but easier for me. Right.
It takes a special couple that will do that.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's how I did it. And then the bigger challenge was getting to a place where, how do you know what to charge as a consultant so you can make money? And I teach people that too. There's actually a process to figuring out how do you charge for your time, your services, your knowledge, and your experience. And a lot of people don't know how to do that, I found.
Would you mind exploring that a little bit further? I'm curious. Between Ted and I, we are fairly visible in our little niche that we have. So we get hit up all the time for advice. And can you look at this thing? Can you help me underwrite this deal? What do you think about this? I've had people that have asked me to like look at their entire P&L and just say, what do you see here is a problem? Like, how do you go from that? And not that this maybe is anything I want to necessarily do, but for those that are in a similar spot where they have really good expertise about something and they get approached by a lot of people and they want to monetize it, how do you figure out what to charge? Where do you start with that?
Yeah, there's 2 ways to look at it. First of all, it's what do you do? I'm a consultant, entrepreneur, and a private equity group, if you will. Mm-hmm. That's where we're heading over the next 10 years. We'll have a bigger private equity portfolio of companies that we're buying and things like that. So if you're a real estate investor, I talk to a lot of real estate fix and flippers that think they're making money because they flip a house and make 40 grand gross. So they don't know what their time is worth or what it's costing them to do that and what the actual numbers have to look like for it to be a living, right? Instead of a hassle that pays just a little bit. If you're a consultant, or even if you're an employee, you have to look at what is your total annual expenses to live your life the way you want to. So if you've got kids, you're saving for college, you've got whatever you're doing, what's that number? Total number, including taxes. And then divide by 2060, which is a full working year for a W-2 employee. Mm-hmm. And you get to a number, right? And that's your hourly wage. That's what you need to make hourly. Now, I don't work 2,060 hours a year. I work 450 hours a year, right? So now I have my annual number divided by 450. So my fee, I charge $1,500 an hour for my consulting. Mm-hmm. I also package it. So if somebody wants to pay 5 hours at a time, I'll charge $5,000.
Okay.
So you get a discount for committing to your own success. because I can do a little bit in an hour. You give me 5 hours, I'm probably building you an entire solution. And then I always give more because I've always believed in sales, over deliver, under promise, right? Yeah. So, if I take somebody on as a client and I want to spend that time with them, they're going to win, hell or high water. That's how it is, right? And then I've discovered over the years, for me at least, I prefer to work with vendors than employees. Vendors have special knowledge in their area and their downline. They don't have any hassles. If they don't show up for work or they don't get the job done, just cancel the contract, right? You don't have to
it's a lot easier than firing somebody and have to worrying about a discrimination lawsuit or drama and all that stuff.
Yeah, all that stuff. Yeah. It's kind of funny, like employees I've found over the years, and not to insult any employees that might be listening, but employees, most of them, unfortunately, do okay at work. But the second they lose their job, they become geniuses. And the lawyers show up and the complaints and everything you just said. I'm like, well, if they just worked like that during the work, we all would have been great. And I'd be happy, So I try and keep that in mind when I'm working. When I do hire people, I really want to indoctrinate them into the way that I see the world and make sure that we're in alignment, we're a fit. Because I don't, life is too short to have conflict like that with people you're supposed to be spending your time with.
Would you mind giving, you don't have to name them, but would you mind giving an example of a situation where where someone hired you as a consultant to basically help them get their shit together with their business? And this is a PG-13 show, by the way. So if you need to drop some of those, we don't mind.
It could happen.
But can you think of a success story? Like, what was the customer, or I guess that's what you call them, a customer, what or a client? What was their situation when they hired you, and how did it change throughout the coaching and consulting that you did for them?
Yeah, I'll tell you about one that I'm working with now. Referred to me by a friend of a friend, right? So it wasn't a heavy marketing thing. It was a proof of concept, proof of my ability was why they came to me. These people own several, husband and wife, vastly different opinions about money, savings, expenses, how to succeed in business. But despite all that, they've amassed a tremendous amount of stuff, 5 or 6 houses, 2 restaurants. They've got kids, they're developers. They're always looking for the next thing that they want to do. When I met them, the first thing they gave me was a Dropbox that had 650 bank statements in 26 different accounts. They had no P&Ls. They didn't know how to manage money at all. And so they were taking the money and leveraging the houses to cover the restaurants. One of them had to go away for about 5 months. So the business had no leadership. So they hired me to take on the leadership of the restaurants. As I said, I was a chef, so it's very comfortable for me to run restaurants. It's in my DNA. And we ended up financing them to give them the bridge loan they needed to get through this 5-month period of transition. And today they are fully organized. Everything has been separated. They've gone from 26 bank accounts down to 3, one for each of the restaurants and one for the real estate portfolio, and the personal ones, like I say, have 4. They didn't know how to read financial statements. They had no idea what a financial statement was. Now they know how to integrate their cash flow statement, their balance sheet, their profit and loss statement, along with their point of sale reports in the restaurants. They know how to analyze their real estate portfolio. They're actually, I think, likely going to dump their entire real estate portfolio out of California and reposition it into higher income opportunities. They're in a small market, losing money on every one of they have equity, but no cash flow.
Yeah.
So they're completely upside down in their cash flow every single month, which causes a fight between the married couple, right? Where are we going to get the money from? Where are we going to get the money from? And then their 4 kids under the age of 7 are struggling because their parents are always fighting, right? So we reset that entire thing. And now we have meetings. The meetings today are not about, it was a 1-year contract. We're about 8 months into it. Now the meetings are not fighting about the money and where to put it. The meetings are about, how do we read these P&Ls and make decisions about employees, management? How do we decide if we want to keep this portfolio? They're actually talking and integrating themselves and interacting with me like owners, not like victims. When I met them, they were victims. Now they were in full control. So much so that they said to me last week, we're ready to take over our books. Give us the bookkeepers, because I've been managing their books for them. So I said, great, here, pick the books. So it's great. It's really great to see people succeed by getting out of their own way, by learning, some basic financial techniques that every business has to know to succeed and grow. Things can get complex, but most businesses that I've experienced, unless you're selling widgets with 600 different SKUs and automated drop shipping, which can get complicated through multiple countries, like that can be a different story. But most small businesses, they need 3 reports: balance sheet, P&L, and cash flow statement. If you know how to read them and how to integrate them, you can succeed.
You mentioned earlier that you gave the example of someone flipping a house and they, made $40,000, but, kind of figuring out what that actually meant from a time spent perspective and so forth. Do you have a fair amount of real estate investors or people that own real estate holdings as your client base, or is that just is it all different industries?
It's all different industries. I've been in real estate and I was a mortgage originator I still originate mortgages, but I do it through third parties now. But I've done 17,000 loans in my career, well over $1 billion. And so a lot of my clients are real estate investors and fix and flippers and developers. A lot of my clients now, because I'm shifting, as we talked, how do you become a consultant? So I went from loan originator to COO/loan originator, because I was still doing that work, right? Why not? You got the license, you got the base, you might as well make the money on it. And then it turned into today, besides consultant, I actually spend most of my time opening family offices for high net worth people. So one example, one of my clients, makes a lot of money. And if he kept on his system that he's on now, he would be worth about $18 million when he retires. By working with me, we're going to turn him into $42 million in the same time frame. So family office is kind of where I'm focusing my efforts today, which includes real estate and finance, and also developing new companies and buying companies and, building people out so that they can really expand their wealth for future generations.
This is, I guess, kind of a question around the real estate investing clients that you've had specifically, or people that have, a good chunk of holdings in it, or maybe they operate a flipping business or something like that. What do you see as a commonality in the things that those customers or clients are not good at? Like they're going along, are they really good at making money, but they have no clue how to operate and have systems and processes, the back end stuff, or like, what have you found? I've
found that very few are operating like a business. Most are a perceived opportunity comes in front of them, and then they're chasing the opportunity and how to make it work. Only a few. I know one guy that actually impressed me. He had about 150 small homes that he had turned into Section 8 housing. So he was killing it with the Section 8. The rents are higher, and he was running a business. He had property management. He had finance in-house. He had everything you would need to run that business. And it was a big business. I think he was doing about $16 million a year through that. But most don't. And I think it doesn't matter if you're doing one house or you're doing 1,000 houses in your portfolio. You're going to have better success if you run a business. And that means having principles, operating metrics, knowing how to read your financials, knowing how to analyze the acquisition and the exit of a property, and then knowing what happens in between, and being able to save on scale. If you're going to do 5 houses, maybe it's worth renting a storage unit and buying all your supplies in the downtime, in the lower time, so you can save money on the supplies, right? But most people don't think that way. Most people are just chasing it, and it ends up eating up all their profit.
We just held a luncheon today, and I remember somebody stood up and said, "Hey, I'm going to get my first flip as my side project." She's like, if anybody has one, just let me know. I'm going to do it during the summer. And they don't look at it as a business. They look at it as just like, oh, it's just going to be my side project. It is a business, and you got to treat it like so. And I think that's a problem, is that maybe they will enjoy it and they pick up another one or two, but it's always looked at as a side project, not something that they're really getting serious about. And I think that's how so many people start. And then they find that they're completely lost, and they weren't tracking their financials. They don't know how much profit they made. They don't know how much time they put into this. Yeah. And then they're stressed out, and then one goes sideways, and then, oh, I'm done.
Yeah. Oh, flipping houses doesn't work. It's not, and they just kibosh the whole thing for perpetuity. Little topic shift here, but what was it like being the president of the Chamber of Commerce in North Hollywood and Universal City. Like that jumped out at me in your bio here as kind of an interesting little twist in your background. How did that happen, and like what was that like?
Yeah.
8 years you did that? Is that right?
I think I was involved in that chamber 9 years.
Okay.
And so it started out like everything. So when I started out in business, when I opened my mortgage company in 2000, I don't know, 2-ish, something like that, 2004, I said to myself, I'm not going to recreate the wheel. I'm going to go find the biggest, baddest originator in Southern California. I'm going to do exactly what he did. So I went and I found this guy. His name was Tim Brahim. He's still out there consulting. He doesn't originate anymore. And I actually financed my house. And I was a mortgage originator, but I financed my house through his company because I wanted to experience everything this guy had done. And I researched the heck out of this guy. And I found out he went through a coaching platform. So I went through the same coaching platform. And the coach at the time said, you should get involved with the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, all right, I'll get involved with the Chamber of Commerce. Now, I was living in North Hollywood. It was interesting because the North Hollywood Chamber serves 33,000 businesses. That's who's in that footprint. So I got involved, and then I became the treasurer on the board. And then one day, one of the guys, the president, he's passed away now. He's a great man named Guy. He called me one day and he said, we want you to be president of the chamber. I go, really? You want me to be president? Because I'm kind of an offsetting kind of guy. I'm aggressive in my business. I'm aggressive in my thinking. And you get into a political situation, which is the chamber, right? And you're aggressive and forward thinking, and politics don't always go together. You know? So I said, all right, if you want me to be president, I'll be president. So I came in and it was challenging. You know, it was great, but it was challenging because it was a small organization. You had a lot of people that had, presupposed opinions of what should happen and what could happen. I'll give you an example. I went in there and the membership was dwindling, which happens to chambers all the time. Membership dwindles over time. Economics change, environments change, cities go through gentrification, and just everything changes for these businesses. So I said to the board, as president, I said, you know what we should do? We should give out free memberships to every single business in the entire area. 33,000 free memberships. They freaked out.
I was going to say, how'd that go over like a lead balloon?
Freaked out. Why would you do that? I said, well, let's think about it. If you can expect 1 to 5%, like these are marketing numbers I'm giving you right now. If you do any kind of cold campaign, you can expect a 1 to 2% response rate. Of the 1 to 2%, you can expect 7 to 10% will purchase if you have a good offer. So you give out 33,000 free memberships, you can expect 3,300 are going to be interested, and maybe 300 of those will buy. Well, this chamber only had 200 members. So we could almost triple your membership in like one fell swoop. And they came up with all kinds of crazy ideas. Well, people don't want to be members if they know somebody else got it for free. And I said, if you ever bought a computer, if you ever buy an Apple computer, and then 3 weeks after you bought it, you saw an advertisement that they're selling them for $500 less. I go, did you go to Apple and start complaining? Or did you go, whatever, I missed the window, right? You probably just said, I missed the window. I'm happy with my computer and life goes on. So someone else got it for $500 cheaper. Who cares? So it was a lot of learning how to market correctly for the organization, find the opportunities and get the buy-in, or accept rejection when it came quickly, because creating conflict is not a solution, especially in an organization like that. And what I was able to do while I was there was completely rebuild their IT system, rebuild their entire marketing system, and put them on a path where they were on their way to going out of business when I came in there to today, they're a thriving organization. So I haven't been involved with them for many, many years, but the pieces and parts that we instilled have held. And that was what was important. So it was really fulfilling and gratifying. And I love serving the community. I'm all about the community. And I'm on the chamber now here in South Lake Tahoe, where I live now. But today I have no interest in being a leadership member. It's like the party committee. It's where you go around and come to the party, right?
I could get behind that type of role.
Okay, wait. Out of the 33,000 though, how many did come over? Did they take your idea? Did they go with it?
They wouldn't implement it.
Okay.
So nobody came over. But just in word of mouth, we did increase the membership, I think, by 12% during that year that we were there running it that way. But they could have tripled.
as I've listened to you talk, it really reminds me a lot of, and I don't know if you would agree with this or disagree, but you sound a lot like Alex Hormozy in the approach that he takes toward, he's written a couple of great books, $100 million offers and $100 million, I can't remember what the title of the second one is, deals or something like that. But, he's a big believer in basically give, and then ask, or wait till they ask you because you've given them so much. So it's kind of like in that same vein where your idea was, let's get everybody as a member or, offer, and then work your way through the process that way. Do you like him as you've been so accomplished with what you've done and the variety of different hats you've worn over the years? Who do you go to for content? Like, when are you, you're a lifelong learner, it seems. What do you like to consume? With business and leadership and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I consume everything I can. I love that you mentioned Alex Hormozy. I was actually talking to his firm yesterday.
Oh, okay.
I'm probably going to go down to, I don't know when, it'll be sometime in the next 6 months when my schedule frees up a little bit, go down to his headquarters down in Las Vegas and do his 2-day boot camp. It's exactly that. I learn from people that have done what it is I want to do. So if I want to open up a private equity firm, and I'm on my way there, I've got a few private offices I'm running now. I've got tons of experience. I'm building a $10 million house. We've built a whole development company. It's time to go to the next level. Mm-hmm. So Alex has had a lot of success. Actually, I was introduced by Alex from my 19-year-old son. So my son and I opened the business together. He's running the business. I'm his consultant. I think I own 5%. He owns 95%.
You're a vendor that he can fire.
That's right, and he knows it. He
taught Ben well, huh?
So Ben said to me, he just said, this guy Alex Hormozy, he's great. So I started, looking into Alex about 6 months ago, and love what he's doing. I kind of call him a guerrilla entrepreneur.
Yeah,
right. I love down in the ditches, pull up your sleeves, find practical solutions that actually make money. So I study Alex Hormozy. Right now, I'm reading a lot from like Warren Buffett, which I probably read before, but I'm reading it again with a different lens. As I get older, I interpret things differently. You see the stack of books behind me. These are all the people I learned from. Malcolm Gladwell's in there, and The One Thing was a great book that I read years ago. I'm into a lot of Stoicism right now. I'm reading and studying a lot of Stoicism and learning that concept of how to quiet our mind and trust our instincts and not react and stay neutral to anything that comes in front of us. So that's where I'm really growing in a lot of ways right now. As far as, who do I want to learn from in the future? I'm really excited to go learn from Alex. I still learn from Joel Bauer, who I mentioned, who's a master at marketing, positioning, and branding. And I pick it up wherever I can. And I talk to people all the time. I'm always talking to people from different industries and learning. Right now, a lot of my learning is not coming from books. I don't know if you've heard of this thing called AI. Have you heard of that?
Vaguely.
It's kind of like all the rage right now, right?
It's Ted's best friend.
Yeah, Ted's best friend.
It is what it is. Just means I'm ahead of the curve. That's all.
I love a lot of what it can do. One of my clients is a cybersecurity attorney. And so I have some particular knowledge because of that relationship of what's really going on in that world and how it's impacting businesses. I can't talk about it here because it's his proprietary information, not mine to share. But I can tell you, AI today is essentially a marketing platform. It doesn't really do anything yet. It can aggregate information and quickly process it. But if you put the wrong information in or you program it wrong, you get a terrible result. So we're building our own AI company. And we partnered with a designer out of Stanford who is a genius at data analysis and implementation. I am learning a ton about AI, the future of AI and computers and supercomputers and processing information. And so I'm all in on that. Another place I'm learning right now is I invested with Tim Draper. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
I know Don Draper from Mad Men, but I don't think probably not the same thing.
If you look up Tim Draper, he's an angel investor. He was one of the first investors at Amazon and PayPal and all those kinds of things. He's worth about $10 billion or something. The interesting thing about Tim was in like 2016, maybe even earlier, the beginning of Bitcoin, he bought like $6 million of Bitcoin at like $400 a coin from the US government that had been seized. And obviously, now it's worth over 105,000 each coin. So he opened up an investment platform and raised some money on one of his investors. And he's building out the infrastructure of the blockchain is what I call it. Companies that are doing things like tokenizing real estate. This will be something interesting to this crowd. There are companies out there, and very few, if any, have actually gotten it done yet. So they talk about it. It's kind of like AI. Oh, you can turn a piece of real estate into a digital asset and tokenize it and make money off it. Well, no one's really actually done it successfully yet at any kind of scale. I think there's a one-off here or a commercial property there. So I am all in, and I go to the Bitcoin, or I should say the cryptocurrency or the blockchain investment conferences around the country. I'm talking to people all the time about where's the future of this technology and how is it going to impact business and real estate and finance. And I'm learning a ton. I took my son to the last one up in Palo Alto. We were there a few weeks ago, and he's 19. He's at Indiana University. So I go, Ben, did you know anything about any of this? He goes, I haven't heard about any of this. So the kids in college don't have any clue where our country is going to be 10 years from now and where the financial platform is going to be 10 years from now. So I just go deep. I go real deep on learning everything I can in the environments I'm in.
What are your thoughts on the U.S. creating a strategic crypto reserve? What do you think about that whole concept?
And is it going to kill the dollar?
I think the dollar's already dead.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, when they started printing trillions and trillions of dollars, they killed it. I think that it's inevitable. I think that it'd be really smart for them to build that reserve, because whether you like it or you don't like it, whether you think it's tangible or intangible or valuable or not valuable, it's here. And it's gone in the last, I got involved with crypto about 8 years ago. So in 8 years, it's gone from $600 or $1,200 a coin to $105,000. That's 10x, right? So 10x in 8 years, and it's not going anywhere. Now, at the beginning, when I first got my beginning 8 years ago, companies were shunning it. Banks were saying absolutely not. The government was actually against it. Everyone thought it was terrible. Now, it is a big source of why we have cybersecurity and all these ransomware problems, right? I think those are all going to get sorted out over time. But if we know or we believe that a Bitcoin is going to go from $100,000 today, 10 years from now to $1 million, another 10x, right? Mm-hmm. Why wouldn't the U.S. government want to capitalize that and provide additional security to the country?
If you don't mind, I'm going to maybe stay within this vein, but pivot a little bit. So where my mind went here is, we have $33 trillion national debt, or somewhere around in there. Might wait 5 minutes. It's probably 34 trillion.
I think you're at 36.5 trillion right now.
Okay. So see, I was wrong. It's at 36.5. So we have a gigantic, probably never to be repaid amount of debt. Yet the government is talking about starting an investment fund instead of allocating taxpayer dollars to paying down the debt. And I'm gonna kind of tailor this toward, say, somebody you're meeting with, like the couple that had all kinds of financial problems. They were successful despite their lack of financial acumen. If you're meeting with somebody and they've got a lot of debt, but they have high income, how do you come up with what the right answer is in allocating the dollars that they have coming in? Is it smart to just pay down debt until you get to zero? Do you do a little bit of both? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, there's a lot of people out there that talk about this, Susie Orman and all those people. And I learned from them years ago when I had debt problems when I was in my 20s, right? Yeah. I learned a lot. What I learned is, what I've experienced and what I've implemented for companies, the fastest way out of debt is build savings. And there's a couple reasons for that. You can renegotiate your debt consistently or default on it, which is not good. I'm not suggesting anybody do that, right? But it's an option. And that's basically simple interest, right? I mean, credit cards can be compounding interest conceptually, but if you're doing it right, you can basically stack your debt as simple interest. And savings, you can put away as compounding interest. So you have to know the difference between those things, right? Here's the difference. In a nutshell, the rule of 72. If no one's ever heard it, I don't know. If you invest your money at 10%, it's going to double every 7 years. If you invest your money at 7%, it's going to double every 10 years. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you manage your debt and constantly renegotiate it and let the compounding interest grow, ultimately you will have enough money on your balance sheet to pay off your debt with a single stroke of a check. And so I tell people, build your savings. Also, we're all one banana peel away from a disaster. One of my mentors told me, right? So you better keep building that savings or else you'll never get out if you don't have that cushion or that protection. As far as allocation percentage, it depends on your age, depends how much debt you have, depends what you can negotiate. If you have a 30% debt and it's like 10 grand, I would put my attention to paying that off first. If you have a debt that's, 100,000, but it's at 2.5%, let it roll. Just let it roll. You're good because you'll make 7% easy in the markets. Like any dope could have made 26% over the last 2 years in the just buying any stock. Right. And I think that people don't understand that. And I think also people think about investing or savings as a game or a challenge. Like, how do we make more? How do we make more? You don't need to make more. You need to make consistent. Mm-hmm. And that's what I learned from Warren Buffett. Most people, if they just invested in a simple S&P ETF fund, making 10, 12% annual returns, would be multimillionaires over 40 years, even if you only put a couple $100 in there a month.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, compounding interest. What is it? The eighth wonder of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I always like to find, because there's so many different schools of thought on that. It's like, the snowball method that Dave Ramsey, preaches about. Just hammer away at the lowest amount of debt and then move that same amount plus over to the next highest and so on and so on. But yeah, I've always been curious about that because like you said, it's the whole analogy of the best time to do something is 20 years ago, but the second best time is today, type thing. And with compounding interest, it really is that, because if you're missing out on a whole bunch of years, if you're not stacking assets that are going to accumulate compound interest, then you're really behind the eight ball and trying to catch up.
Yeah. I tell people that they should invest in things that are automatic and become like a bill, like a monthly bill, and do it in a way you can afford. So I have a lot of investment in whole life insurance. And why? Because it's a bill. I pay it every month. It's become part of my lifestyle. I don't think about it. After the first 3 years, like 75, 80% of everything I spend goes directly into cash savings that's earning between 6 and 12% tax free. That's like 22% taxable, right? So, and it just grows and grows and grows, and life insurance becomes a private bank. And this honestly is the way the Rockefellers did it. So the way the Rockefellers got so rich, besides steel and all their other businesses and real estate, is they invested, and they still do, their families still invest in whole life insurance.
Interesting. I did not know that little tidbit. Ted and I spent a brief stint as basically investment advisors, but really we were life insurance salesmen. And that was one thing I did really early on in my financial planning activity. I was reading a whole bunch of books and all that. And I did overfunded whole and variable life insurance policies. And, I'm sure you hear this too. If you're kind of evangelizing that whole approach of using whole life to accumulate, basically cash value, and it compounds over time, and you're not taxed on the gains, you can borrow against it. You can use that money for other things like investments and real estate and all that. And then you also have the death benefit, which you hear a lot of people that say, well, just buy term insurance and then invest the difference. But I don't know if you'd agree with this, but what I found is people don't actually do that. They don't have the discipline to invest the difference. And it's like, yes, you could do that. That may be what would work best for you. But also there is the whole thing about guaranteed insurability if you lock it in at a younger age, because it will never get cheaper, right? Than today. Like tomorrow it's going to be more expensive, and the next day, and so on. And I went through a cancer scare when I was 40 years old. Now my insurance, if I wanted to go out and get the same policies I had back then, it'd be 5 times as much, maybe more. So it's something you don't think about when you're in your 20s and that kind of thing. And it's like, that is literally the best time you can do it if your parents didn't buy something for you when you were born.
That's right.
But yeah, I like that approach too. And it's a different, unique way to accumulate wealth, but it is kind of a polarizing topic. You get people that are definitely on both sides of the fence there.
Yeah. Well, I don't engage in the polarization of it. The fact of the matter is it's never going away. And the reason it's never going away, and the reason that the government never messes with it, and the reason it's tax-free, and the reason that it's got all these advantages that we talked about, you mentioned, is because the vast majority of Congress is doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just do what they do, right? They're in control of the rules. They're not going to hurt themselves primarily.
Yeah, no, I get it. Now, I want to make sure and give you credit where credit is due here, because you surprised both Ted and I think, with the fact that you are a 6-time published author. That is pretty cool. And I guess what led to your first book? And maybe if you wouldn't mind just kind of breezing over what the main topics are for the ones that you put out there to the world.
Yeah, the books have been formed by a necessity to explain something that I don't want to explain over and over and over again. So this was the first book I wrote. I wrote this when I was running the big real estate company, and you see my name is not on here.
Don't call me.
Right? No. Well, I did it because I was doing it for the benefit of somebody else. But if you look at the publisher, it's the Jaffe Press. And I engineered and wrote this entire book with a team, but I directed them and everything. This was an analytical analysis of what was going on in 2009 in California in the real estate markets. And it was really interesting because it got a lot of interest. I was going to a lot of conferences at that time and talking to tons and tons of people all around the country. And I'd sit at these dinners and people would look at me and go, well, we read that book that your company wrote. See, it wasn't my book. It was the company's book. And they were mad. Boy, were they mad. And then every time someone got mad, I got out of the anger by saying one thing. You know, I used to be a professional chef. And they go, really? Let's talk about that. And everything went away. So that was the first book. And it was more of a
little misdirection. Hey, look over here. Yeah,
everyone wants to talk to me about being a chef. Everyone loves that. And were you on Below Deck? And I wasn't on Below Deck, but I worked on yachts just like that. So yes, I've done that. This book, which is my most recent book, is called Real Estate Relationships or Relationships. And I wrote this book because we have a mastermind that we run every couple of years. We're getting ready to start it again, the M3 mastermind. But a lot of the people that I met were struggling, the real estate agents in particular, and mortgage brokers and fix and flippers. Where do you find your next deal? How do you get someone to do a listing with you? Oh my God, what's going to happen now that they've changed the commission structures for real estate agents?
Yeah.
And everyone was freaking out. And I was fielding hundreds of calls and explaining it over and over. I said, here, let me just write it down for you. So here it is. And anyone can get a copy of this. I'm happy. You can either buy it on Amazon if you want to, or if you reach out to me directly and ask nicely, I'll send you a digital copy. The other books were about mortgage and sales. So I wrote a book for small, I don't have it in front of me here, but one of the books I wrote was for small businesses, how to grab customers in any environment and build your business guaranteed. So there's a whole book about how to treat people, how to build a process, how to acquire new clients. That's what that book's about. The other couple are about mortgages. How do you get your loan approved? How do you pick a loan officer? If you're a real estate agent, how do you partner with the right loan officer? Because real estate agents and loan officers are missing the boat. They do not respect that relationship and the power of it. And there's a lot of AI, right, that's creating those relationships, and a lot of companies that are pushing those relationships. But in my 25 years of talking to realtors and mortgage people, very few have a relationship that lasts longer than, I'd say, 6 to 9 months between mortgage and real estate professionals.
Really?
I agree.
It just fizzles out.
Just fizzles. So people don't really understand what it takes to build a sustaining long-term business relationship. And that's what this book is all about.
I noticed on the kind of the footnote on that, it says something to the effect of how to get 9 referrals from every business transaction.
How to turn every real estate transaction into 9 referrals. And then I have processes. I've already built processes. So people that join the mastermind that wanted to focus on this concept, we have already built out the entire process. And I'll tell you, most of my books that I've written have generated for me in cash. It cost me about $3,000 to write a book and publish it and print it and put it on Amazon. And I make somewhere between $90,000 to $150,000 every time I do one.
Whoa.
Right.
So
that's a good return on investment. And now I have a book that I can carry around and go, look, I got a book. Right.
Every author we talk to is like, I make like 3 cents or 30 cents per book.
Yeah. No,
you're self-publishing, so it makes a big difference there, I'm assuming.
That's right. So people don't know how to use them correctly. There's reasons to write books. If you just have something that you want to say and you want to publish it, great. And I know a lot of people that do that. If you want to make money, there's a system that goes with it. And so the people that join the mastermind that want the systems, it comes with the mastermind. So the masterminds are turnkey solutions. Like, because I went through all this training in my career, right? Mm-hmm. I think I got frustrated over the years and the hundreds of thousands of dollars of buying stuff that just didn't work, or buying stuff that just meant I had to put another 50 hours a week into making it work, which I don't have. Like, who has another 50 hours a week that they want to do? So we build everything for them and just make sure and just show them how to use it. And then they send it out. And everyone succeeds. So it must be working.
In your mastermind group, it's M3, right? M3 mastermind. Who is your customer avatar there? Like what type of person or profession is going to be someone that would really benefit from being a part of that group?
Yeah. M3 is methods, mindset, and metrics. So how do you build the tools you need, or how do you acquire them? What kind of mindset do you have to succeed in business? And how do you measure whether or not you're winning or losing, right? And we built all that out. The mastermind is good for anybody that has the right attitude and can get along with me. Those are the people that succeed in the mastermind ultimately. So we've had restaurants, coffee shops, optometrists, dentists, real estate, mortgage. I'm beginning to work with a client right now that is building a brand new company in the meat, services, and packing industry. So really anyone can succeed because the baseline tools for building a business and engaging with a client base and finding new opportunities are essentially the same today that they were when I started, that they were when they wrote Think and Grow Rich, that they were when they wrote some of the Stoicism stuff. Human beings haven't changed. The technology around us has changed, that's true, but a human being really hasn't evolved much. The reptilian brain, the forward-thinking brain, the emotional context of how we're made up, none of that has really changed in the last, 10,000 years?
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit 10,000 years. I'll just say 2,000 years.
Let's talk mortgages for a minute. How did you get involved in that line of business in the first place?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I was a chef for 10 years, worked on private yachts, worked with all my mentors that I really wanted to work with. And unfortunately, 3 out of the 6 of them are dead now, which just breaks my heart because it's
Not from poisoning food.
not from poisoning food, but
That's good.
from probably from too much stress, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
All 3 of them that I'm thinking of passed away of cancer in their mid 50s and early 60s. And being a chef is it's a really tough lifestyle. Really tough.
Have you ever seen The Bear?
Yeah, I saw that recently.
Yeah. Did you get PTSD from watching that?
It's kind of a violent movie, right?
Is it? Well, it was it's the guy off of Shameless, he's an executive chef and his whole goal is to make a Michelin star restaurant in Chicago in this like crap hole that he used to run with his brother. And then he turns the whole thing around. But I am super stressed every time I watch an episode of there. Ted, have you seen this?
No, it's on my wife and I's list though.
It is a really well done show. I was just curious if you had seen that and how much that actually matched up to what your experience was.
I don't think I've seen that one. I'm gonna see it. I think I saw Cocaine Bear.
Oh,
that was what I was thinking. The bear was like, oh man, I could not watch that movie.
The Bear is on. I believe it's Hulu. It's a great watch. I think you would love it, man. You gotta put that on your upcoming list.
I will definitely. So what happened to me was after I got off the yachts and went back to New Orleans and worked with all my favorite chefs, my hands got bad and I couldn't function anymore. Like I'd be cutting the tips of my fingers off and not feeling it. I'd be working with a pan and it would go flying across the kitchen because I didn't have the strength in my hands to do it anymore. Ugh. So I said, well, I guess this career is over. I better go do something else. So I moved to LA and said to myself, you better get into real estate because that's how you're going to make money in LA. And I just went down this path of, learning everything there is to learn about real estate. It ended up being nationwide, but at that time in LA, it gets under your skin. People that are listening to this, be careful because real estate will get under your skin. And if it does, it's part of your life. It's never going to go away. You'll always be looking at a deal. You'll always be thinking, I can flip this one. I can change that one. I can negotiate this. And part of my consulting business now is actually helping people out of those bad situations. So I've helped, hundreds of people that thought they were private investors who didn't know how to analyze a property and got turned upside down on their loan. Or on the other side, people that borrow the money that didn't know how to analyze a property and it turned bad, but they didn't know how to negotiate a workout with their lender. Mm-hmm. So we've done a lot of work with those types of folks, solving the problems, bridging the gaps, making sure those relationships stay solid because, people make mistakes. There's no reason to blow up a relationship that could make money over years just because one deal went sideways.
Yeah.
Right.
Kirk, being a consultant yourself, what kind of consultants have you sought out to lift you up and in different coaches that have you taken on over the years?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in coaching. Like I said, I sought out that one. It was called Building Champions. They're still in business. Daniel Harkavy is the guy that owns it. Amazing platform for people starting out in the mortgage And I would even say the real estate business, although they're more focused, I think, on mortgage. But I've been through Brian Buffini on the real estate side, who I think is an adorable man. I love his attitude and how he engages on a human level. I'm trying to think of my friend down in San Diego. I've hired private coaches. I've hired coaches that were referred to me by friends. One guy in particular he's no longer coaching individuals. He coaches only people doing TED Talks. So people come to him to learn how to present, find their balance, find their center, and be able to present to 10,000 people live. So that's what he's doing now.
I was just hearing about somebody doing this. I think it was on a podcast I was listening to. Who is that?
Oh God, I've got to remember all their names.
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, I mean, I was just hearing this exact conversation with somebody. Maybe it was Andrew Devlin that was talking about it.
Andrew Devlin's a real good friend of mine.
Yeah,
he's amazing. He's one of my current coaches that I work with, and also Jason Dries, who's affiliated with Andrew in some ways. That's all mindset. And I went to Jason. We all have problems in life, right? So if anyone tells me they don't have any problems, I'd get concerned. It could be a small problem, a hangnail. It could be a big problem, like a divorce and alienation from your kids, which was my problem. And so it was very hard for me to transition through that emotional context of how to manage the divorce and maintain a relationship with my kids when I had been alienated from them. So joined Jason, who helped me through a lot of that. And then I found a company called 100K Fathers. So anyone on this podcast that's having, family with kids troubles, you're not alone. There is a group of men, international. These are good people, most of them, that just couldn't figure it out, couldn't learn how to communicate, couldn't bridge the emotional gap. And so this is a platform that supports an entire group of men through that process. And it's amazing. Other mentors I have, it's unlimited. Like I will join coaching and join groups anywhere that I can feel like it expands my circle, expands my thinking, and makes me a more grounded person.
Hey, Kirk, on the topic of hiring a coach, Ted and I have a lot of friends that are small business owners, entrepreneurs, real estate investors, that kind of ecosystem. And I think people that have been doing something for a while develop, and maybe this is describing me, but you get to a point where you're like, I'm successful. I've officially gotten to a point where I'm comfortable saying I'm successful in XYZ. And then someone mentions getting a coach. Do you find that people may resist that because they have some, and I think maybe a little bit of it is, and maybe I'm putting my own thing out there, where you don't want to be exposed as a fraud, not a literal fraud, but like you get resistance, from people that are like, they have maybe this persona or the self-perception, and they're afraid of people like picking around in their brain and finding out like you actually don't really know what you're talking about, like as much as you're portraying. Is that a point of resistance sometimes when you're entering a new coaching relationship with somebody new?
Yeah, I think that imposter syndrome is very real, and I know a lot of people that struggle with it. Coaches are pretty adept to it. It's a well-known problem. Mm-hmm. I think for people that feel that way, they should accept the fact that we all have weaknesses and we all have human tendencies, right? In our makeup, in our brain. And you also have to understand that the brain really only has two functions in its existence. The brain's function is to regulate homeostasis in your body and keep you from feeling pain. So you touch a hot stove, you pull your hand away without thinking about it, right? If you have a fever, you're going to start sweating. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing in coaching, except if you feel like you're in a place where you have a block or a fear or an imposter syndrome or any kind of negativity around coaching is something that's in your head that's probably not real. And so I would encourage those people to go try it with an open heart and an open mind.
Right? I feel like on every group coaching call, the imposter syndrome, I've brought it up numerous times, but I feel like it's one of the most common things brought up in the group settings. It is constantly covered. It's a huge problem, it can be overcome, So I'm looking at my desk here. Okay. Let me just show you how I overcome imposter syndrome for myself, because we all get it at some point, or we all have some kind of hang up at some point. Right. So here's my desk. I get to pull this out. This is a book of Zig Ziglar, literal books of big quotes. Right? I don't even know where I got it from, but I found it and it sits on my desk because when I get frustrated, angry, annoyed, whatever my problem might be, I can open this up and read a single passage and be like, all right, that's fine. I can deal with it. Right?
I have on here, these are some of the giveaways that I got from Joel Bauer, who I told you I've worked with for years. Now, this may look like nothing to you, right? These are all USB drive concepts.
Okay.
Yep.
First of all, they're really cool. Like what I'm showing you right here, if you're an investor or you're a real estate agent and you have your own credit card with all your content on it that goes into a computer or can be picked up automatically through Bluetooth onto a phone, nobody has that. It sets you apart right away. But on here is combined between these four pieces is like $750,000 of actionable tools that I use regularly in presenting myself. And they're all templates and they're all built. So whatever I spent to learn from him over the years is minuscule compared to what I have. But I keep it in front of me to remind me of all the different tools I have at hand. So I'm not a victim. I always can find the tool and I keep them right in front of me. And then the other thing, this is the last one if I can get them quickly. I keep, these are things that came from Jason Drees, which I just thought were freaking genius. These are little one-liner sayings. I had them taped all over my computer. I have two big monitors here. You can't see that, but I had them taped all over my computer just to remind me. So it says, you're already your best version of you. So stop being, just stop it, right? Here's another one that says, just because it's not likely doesn't mean it's impossible. So keep an open mind.
I didn't get those.
Yeah, you have to sign up for his VIP program, Ted.
Yeah.
Obviously.
I'm in the VIP program.
Well, anyone that joins the M3, I'm sure if I called Jason and asked him if I could use these, he would give me 100% permission to do so.
Yeah.
No, that's great. So kind of the takeaway here is it seems like you need to have positive reinforcement over your beliefs and the station you're at in life, not be so self-judgmental, and provide yourself good reminders of positive aspects of what you're involved in and your mindset, and just like constant, positive reinforcement. It seems like that's
environment. You have to build the environment that's there to support your success.
Yeah, love it. What's next for you? So you've done so much, from president and treasurer of the Chamber of Commerce in North Hollywood to being an executive chef to coaching, multi-millionaires on how to get their shit together, and 6 books. Like what next, man? Like this is exciting. It's like, but how do you, are you just like, you already checked off all your bucket lists and you're just starting on bucket list version 2.0, or what is that?
No, a lot of things on my bucket list still.
Yeah. What's a big one? Like what, maybe something that you're like, you know what, I am for sure doing this before I die. You got anything like that?
Oh yeah. I want to take my own yacht. I don't want to own it. I don't want to own a yacht because I'm not interested in that in all that goes with it. And I know it, but I do want to charter a yacht for about a month, like the one that I worked on.
Yeah.
And it will probably cost about $5 million. And I want to, take 20 of my friends and go travel the Mediterranean for my birthday, for my 55th birthday. So that's one bucket list thing.
That is cool. Are you going to have an executive chef on board?
It comes with it.
Yes.
16 staff members, executive chef, anything you want, you ask for it, 24 hours a day, it'll be there.
I am down. If one of your 20 friends, just put me on your depth chart, man. I don't care where in the depth chart I am, but
you won't feel bad if you're the backup.
No, I am totally fine with being like the 20th out of 20 optional people.
We'll put you in the engine room. It'll be
there we go. Hey, I will wear a conductor. I don't know what they wear on yachts, but I'll be that guy.
But for me, the next 10 years, I just turned 51. So the next 9 years for me is a further transition. We're going to run the M3 because I love to serve and I love to help people. So that'll continue. We are building custom built, modular built homes. And I built a lending product that goes with it. Over the next 10 years, I'd love to see that lending product become commonplace. So that would be something I'll work on in building these homes. The homes, while we're building luxury today, I can also build moderate communities. I can build workforce housing. I can build luxury. So we have 3 different brands around that concept. So we're going to focus on building that out. I don't believe there's a housing problem in America. I believe there's an entitlement problem, enfranchisement problem. Anybody, just about anybody really, can buy a house in Lincoln, Nebraska for $60,000 right now on an FHA loan with $9,000 down, right? 3.5%, whatever. And tear it down and put a modular house on it using the product that I've created, and then sell it and make $100,000 in equity in 18 months. And now you have $100,000. So I know you got to go to Lincoln, Nebraska for a year.
Well, that's only
Fine.
45 minutes away from us, so we're in Omaha.
Right.
That works out.
Yeah, people need to make those life choices. So that's part of it. And the last thing that I want to do is I really want to build several family offices for some high net worth people that can contribute. Part of a family office is the nonprofit piece. And so we have an ability to really impact a lot of people. My wife and I are developing our own nonprofit. We're foster parents as well. So there's an amazing facility in Texas that houses 32 kids and puts them through school, and they all come out with jobs and credentials, and they go from disaster to developed, right, through their time. So we want to bring that concept here to Nevada. So our nonprofit is there to support the enfranchisement education of foster kids. So that's what we're doing. The more that we can help other families create that, the more we can impact society in the right way, which means we don't have to depend on the government so much. And we don't really care if they set up a Bitcoin reserve or not. Although I think they should.
Oh, that's cool.
Now, if I read right, now first off, is that the Amy and Kirk Jaffe Family Charity?
Yes.
And if I read right, you guys are contributing what, 35,000 out to a total of $250,000 over what, 5 years?
Yep, that's where we're at right now.
That's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to ask you a selfish question, and then we will kind of pivot over into the kind of the tail end of our show here.
I'm guessing this is going to be lending related.
No, actually, this is more of a, like we're kind of the same, Gen X slice of life here. So I turned 50 this last year, so we're roughly the same age.
Yep.
And I would imagine with all the things that you've been involved in, you probably see a ton of opportunities, like with just business and like investment options and so forth, right? How do you look at life through the lens of a 51-year-old now related to opportunities that are presented to you versus somebody that is maybe 40 or younger, earlier in their career? Do you say no a lot more now? How do you think about opportunities as they come to you?
Yeah. I picked up Ray Dalio's book, Principles, about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, it feels like.
That's a heavy lift.
It's a heavy lift. But what I learned, what happened from that is I've developed principles for how I live my life. And it makes it very easy to say no to almost everything today. When I was 40, I was scrambling for everything, right? Running the big company, and it ended up hurting me physically, autoimmune disease and emotionally, divorce, and all these different things that happened over the last 11, 12 years. And so I found that saying no is healthier if you know what you are really excellent at. If you don't know what you're excellent at, then you're going to not know what to say yes or no to. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right?
It makes a lot of sense.
So today it's about, my yeses come from, I have 2 rules. I also developed 2 rules from those principles. I think I did this even before that, though. I don't work with jackasses. So if somebody doesn't like me and I don't like them at first point of contact, we're done. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't go any further. And we all have to know how we're going to make money. We don't have to make money today, but it has to be apparent that there's a path to making money that's interesting to both parties. And the other thing, because I'm very, I don't want to say charity, but very community minded, right? I look on ways to improve other people. I'll give you an example. One of my business partners referred a technology guy to me who was struggling in business. He's got a great concept, but he doesn't know how to package it or sell it. He can't pay me, and I'm not in a position to work on that. I'm not interested. Then I went to a business expo from the chamber here in Lake Tahoe, and I met another guy who can fix party A, party B. Party B can fix party A's problem, 100%. So I put them together, and within 10 minutes, they started working it out. I'm going to take a percentage of the company. So just for putting them together, I will make money because I didn't do anything other than be aware of what the opportunity might be for these people to change their lives and their families and their communities. And that's what's important to me. So I think that's the biggest thing I've learned as I've gotten older is how to leverage more with less, how to help other people and still win on my own. And sometimes winning is monetary, and sometimes I just feel good because I help 2 other people get on their way. And that's kind of where I am today.
And if you have the repetitive time suck, you just need to write a book and then hand it to those people that call you for those meetings.
That's right. There you go. Yeah.
It even gets better than that. There's a platform. So I was standing outside the Digital Asset Conference in New York City, waiting for a cab. And this random guy next to me goes, "Can I talk to you later? Here, scan this." and he gives me a QR code. I scan it, and it's his entire it's his business card. It's called Hi Hello. There's a free version. There's a very cheap, pay for version. Hi Hello. So I bought Hi Hello. My entire portfolio is on my Hi Hello card, and I have 4 of them. I have one for my nonprofit. I have one for venture capital. I have one for consulting services. But to your point, it's like I don't even have to show the book anymore because a copy of the book is probably, or I think one of them is inside my Hi Hello card. You just download it to gift.
Yeah, actually, Ted and I just had a luncheon event that he puts on monthly, and I had 2 people come up to me and ask me for a business card, and I have mine's called Dot, I think, and it's similar to that. You can upload basically all your links and all your stuff in there. And I was like, do you have a phone? But the downside to those is like a lot of people don't know how to use them. Whereas like, if you just have a business card, you hand it to them, they just take it and put it away and whatever. You may hear from them, you may not. But you're like, oh, I have one of those QR cards, and they're like, oh, okay. And then they get their phone out and they don't know how to do it or whatever. That's the only downside to those.
Yeah.
But,
I create a business card and I just put a QR code on it. And it's one whole side's nothing but a QR code. I'm like, here's my card. Scan the backside. It goes to my personal website, and you'll find all my links.
Yeah,
but you should also own your name. So you should own dashner.com, kirkjaffe.com, and then it should go to everything that you do.
Yeah, the one thing about business cards that you don't want to miss with the technology that's out there today, like Hi Hello, if somebody scans my card, 90% of the time I get their contact information.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So now I'm not just giving them a card and hoping they'll call me. I'm getting them to scan my card and then I call them.
Oh yeah. I like that. Kind of a ninja tactic.
That's right. So the Alex Hormozi concept, right? Guerrilla marketing.
Speaking of ninjas, we have a section that we like to talk to our guests about where it involves something that didn't go according to plan. It sounds like you've had a crap ton of success in various aspects of life and business. But is there anything that hasn't gone according to plan here over the Kirk Jaffe career timeline that you wouldn't mind sharing? Maybe a lesson learned along the way?
In the section that we call Failing Forward. He's just going to glaze right over that.
My first time.
Yeah, I'll tell you 2 that came to mind right away. The first one was my divorce. And that was probably the most traumatic experience I've ever had in my life. And it happened for one reason. And the reason was I was trying to do too much with too few resources.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the resources were in my heart and my mind. It wasn't like a financial thing. I was trying to take over the world. And in doing so, I just stressed myself out and ruined my relationship and all that goes with that. So what I learned was choose your partner wisely. Right. And I don't know if you guys have, heard Warren Buffett say it, the most successful marriage is a frugal partnership, a woman that would prefers to cook at home than going out. I also heard him say, you want to be with somebody that would rather take the cost of the wedding ring and put it towards an investment that supports your family. Like that's a good recipe for long-term success in marriage.
I think Jeff Bezos is screwed then.
Yeah. No, that might be okay. He's trying to get to the moon.
I've been his ex-wife, but I don't know about his current wife.
Yeah. So I learned from that, slow down, be patient, listen more than you talk, right? All those things that probably we've all heard, but I didn't get it until I had to go through that very painful experience and it took my CPA at the time told me it'll take you 7 years to get back on your feet. Ooh. And I said, come on, that's ridiculous, right? It's not going to take me. It took 7 years before I was emotionally and financially back and then growing again. The part before that, it was just maintaining and chasing my tail, trying to get through it. It was really hard. So I learned that. On the other side, something I've learned in my career, another failure, I learned in 2008 when the markets collapsed in my mortgage company, it was actually August of 2007 that I felt the mortgage collapse. I talked to somebody a couple of days ago that they felt it in February of 2007, which was much before it was announced to the world there was a financial crisis problem. And so I was, packaging files 5 times, getting them the same file. I would package it 5 times, get it to docs. The company would go out of business before funding. Docs were signed. The company would go out of business before funding. I had to scramble, repackage it, send it to somebody else. So I learned have backups on backups on backups. And that's what I do. Everything in my world is backed up 3, 4, 5 different ways so that if I go down or my company goes down or the world goes down, I'm not going to lose everything. I lose a couple months worth of my efforts. So backups on backups.
Yeah. So it's kind of the idea of like putting all your eggs in one basket can really come back and bite you. And then, Department of Redundancy department is kind of the backup plan there, right?
Yeah. And you said, don't put all your eggs in one basket, which is why I have so many businesses today. I have a landscaping company, I have a consulting company, I have a home building company, and they're all in different industries. So if something happens to one, the other one's going to be okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Kirk, thank you so much for coming on. The content has been great. The conversations have been easy. I even haven't had to talk very much because Owen has just been going nonstop. So it makes life.
I have a lot of questions, man. He's an interesting dude.
Kirk and I went on for about an hour nonstop, and he had to cut me off. He's like, "Hey, hour's done. I got a jet." But I'm so glad that I got to meet you through Andrew and Jason. It's just been it's been a great opportunity, and thank you so much for taking the time to be on this. But we do have a section that we famously call the OT with Owen and Ted, and these are the questions we like to ask all of our guests. And sometimes we mix it up a little bit. Like this first question will definitely get mixed up because your situation is a little unique from everybody else we interview.
All right. So, Kirk, if you were going to write another book, you've got 6 of them that you put out there to the world. Do you have a 7th in the hopper? Something you're thinking on right now that you're going to release to the wild here soon?
Something else you got put out there because so many people are bugging you on that topic?
The next book that I want to write is actually I want to compile all the other books I've written and pull up to the surface the lessons that came from each of those experiences. So the next book will be a compilation of the best of each of the other 6 efforts I put in, but more around mentorship and life growth is where we'll go.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. So a compendium, the Kirk Jaffe compendium.
And Kirk, if somebody was writing a book, could they reach out to your publishing company?
Yeah, sure. It's very easy. Publishing is an interesting thing today. Better to publish your own stuff. You keep all the money. It's not expensive. AI is great for writing books. I'll tell you, that's a great thing for AI. You give it 55 topics that are important to you with some support and say, write me a book. You'll get a 150-page book in about 3 minutes. And then publish it yourself through Amazon Kindle, and you're on your way. Anybody who wants to work with me on that, that's something we would do in the mastermind, by the way. Somebody was in the mastermind, was like, I need to write a book. Great, let's do it.
I would bet one of the biggest benefits of self-publishing is you don't have an editor or the publisher like on your ass about when's the next book coming out? You got until September or whatever, right? You're just like, whatever. I don't feel like doing it. I'm on my yacht. What do you want?
Yeah, exactly. And the way that information is consumed today and the speed that information is consumed today, it's better to do it on your own, in my opinion.
Maybe I'm going a long way here, but it's been a few months now. But there's a GPT that I found that just for book writing, and as I'm driving, I've been covering a topic just on the power of groups, and I probably about 50 hours of talking to this app now into it, and I think by last count, I think I got it says 3 to 6 more hours of content I got to put in, and I'm like, man, when is this gonna like? I'm not even writing the damn thing, and I feel like it's taking forever.
You need a road trip. We gotta get you on a road trip.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, straight to Florida.
I just drove to Estes Park. I should have done it then, but the kids are driving me crazy. Well, first off, Kirk, do you have your own podcast, or have you ever?
No, I've never had my own podcast. Probably because I just keep so busy that keeping it consistent would be tougher for me.
Yeah,
mm-hmm. I love being guests on other people's podcasts, and I really put all my effort into the mastermind to serve the clients the best. So we do a monthly webinar with them, which is, I guess, kind of like a podcast, but
totally.
Yeah. No. Hey, your mastermind, real quick. The M3, is that an in-person one? And how often do you hold the like? Do you get together monthly, annually, quarterly? What's that look like?
Yeah. So the M3 is done through Zoom or digital monthly. There's a monthly webinar. Anybody that completes the tasks that they agreed to complete can consult with me as soon as they're done. So I can consult people 3, 4, 10 times a month, one-on-one, or not at all if they don't do the work.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately happens sometimes. And then I am working on putting together a conference of sorts out here in Lake Tahoe. I love to work with people on the ski lift. So I bring clients in, and people from the M3 can come in, but they used to be able to stay with me, but we decided we'd have to bring in, full-time housekeeper and chef and things like that. So we'll put you up at the hotel, and then we'll go skiing all day long in the wintertime. I live right on the mountain at Heavenly. And while we're on the lift, you would not believe what comes out when you've got a little exhilaration and you're sitting on a lift and you start talking about stuff. And then we go home at night, we whiteboard it. The entire wall behind me is painted as a whiteboard. And we whiteboard it and then we implement and execute. So that's part of it for anyone that wants to do that. And if someone doesn't want to join the mastermind, but just wants to pay me to come out and do that work, we do that too.
I was picturing when you were talking about the ski lift, like, you ever see on shows sometimes somebody thinks they're going to get into a plane crash, like there's a whole bunch of turbulence, and then they tell this person next to them, like they're like, I always wanted to do this, or like they're in tears or whatever, and they tell them they're like life goals. That's what I was picturing when you're on your ski lift.
That's kind of what happens. The mastermind, we have the mastermind comes with all kinds of support documents. Over the years, I've amassed a legal library of about 100,000. It's a little bit more legal documents. So we have loan documents and partnership documents, all kinds of things that people would need for practical purposes. So that comes with it. And now the AI program. So they get that too, because we want people to win.
It honestly sounds like too good to be true for the price. I mean, 15,000 and you get all that, but you also get the database that you're going to send out, which is pretty outstanding. I mean, I think our newsletter list is around 16 or 17,000. I thought that was pretty stout.
Yeah, there's always somebody with a bigger plane, man.
Okay, so the question is, it's your podcast. You can interview anyone in the world today. Doesn't need to be real estate related. Who is it? What's one question that you want to ask?
Yeah, I think I would like to talk with Ray Dalio or Abraham Lincoln, who I also keep here on my desk. I keep a little thing. I don't know where he went to right now, but Abe Lincoln or Ray Dalio. Abe Lincoln, I would love to understand more about his mental state. He used to write letters when he got pissed off, and he never sent them. So when he died and they opened up his credenza, they found thousands of letters, scathing letters, some of them.
They're like,
people,
this guy's a psycho. Like,
what's that?
People reading them are like,
probably.
Abe's got some problems.
Yeah. And he did. Abe went bankrupt like 6 times and lost 4 children, I think. And, just had one of the most difficult lives to make such an impact in such a short period of time, only to be shot. Like, it's ironic, right?
Yeah.
I'd love to talk with him and ask him more about those letters and more about his mindset around why he did that or what the benefit to him was. Ray Dalio, I'd like to talk to him more about building a principled life and asking him, I can form principles by reading from you and thinking about what you've already thought of. But if I want to create my own conceptual vision and future, like at this level, where do you start?
Yeah, that is the first time either one of those names have been mentioned for that question. So we always like the unique approach to that.
And for the listeners, I don't know who Ray Dalio is. Can you give a quick overview?
Yeah, Ray Dalio started what is now the largest, I believe, still the largest investment fund in the country out of his apartment with $5,000 in 1984, I believe it was. Bridgewater is what it's called. And he built this up into a huge, not only he's a macro global monetary investor. So he looks at what's going on around the world and how it all interacts. And then he invests in these, cohesive areas, the X, where things cross over that he thinks where it's going to make a big impact. And he became hugely successful. And then he started consulting and advising to these huge firms around these concepts and how they could position their companies more effectively. So it's Bridgewater Associates. And again, anyone that's listening to this, just like me and just like you guys, I imagine, we bootstrapped this. Like, I wasn't given any money. I don't have a trust fund or anything like that. I'm growing it on my own. And that was the same thing that Ray did. And the other thing about Ray is he's still married to the same woman that he started with, which I think is rare for an entrepreneur in this world.
Yeah, for sure.
Start in your apartment, build the largest investment platform in the entire country, and still be in that kind of place with your spouse. It's amazing to me. So I'd love to know more about that.
It reminds me of that comment you said that your accountant made to you.
Yeah, it was a little while ago, but he basically saw, I'd meet with my CPA and we were doing just kind of like tax strategy planning and so forth, and he just kind of stopped and looked at me. And this is not his style normally, but he was like, he saw I was having increased financial success year over year. And he just stopped and looked at me. And I think I don't know, this is maybe 5 years ago. But he goes, I'm going to give you a piece of advice unsolicited. And he said, pay attention to where you're at in your marriage right now. You're in your peak earning years. I see what's happening in your businesses. You figured out how to make money, figure out how to keep it. And you keep it by keeping your spouse happy and paying attention to your significant other and all those things. And I was like, whoa. And I really, really thought about that a lot and realized a lot of things about myself and what was going on that I couldn't see the forest through the trees. So that was timely and very like prescient advice that he gave me there. And I will always remember it. Like it's weird where things hit you at the right time and you take hold of that and really, pay attention. So, well, that's awesome. I have a sad question for you. We are at the end of the road for the Jaffe consulting group here. Well, maybe not. Maybe it's going to carry on with your legacy. But who do you think is the person that will deliver your eulogy, and how do you want to be remembered?
Yeah, I love that question. I've written my eulogy 3 times.
Oh, okay.
That was one of the first tasks that we had to do at Building Champions. So 2004, I was with Building Champions, which is, I was very young, right? To be writing my eulogy, it was kind of strange. And I still have it. I don't have it in front of me right now, but I keep it nearby. What was most important to me about the eulogy at that point was, what did I want to leave to the world? And it was nonprofit foundation supporting education. Mm-hmm. And now we're doing that. But with my second wife and I are actually doing that for foster kids. It was being able to support and educate mass groups of people. And we're doing that by being on podcasts like this and having the M3 and things like that. And so what I found is in writing the eulogy myself, it really subconsciously laid out how I was going to function for the next 30 years, which is kind of a weird thing to think about, but it actually happens. I hope that when I pass away that, my son would give my eulogy and, maybe acknowledge that despite all the challenges that he and I have endured in the divorce and all that I left something greater to the world and I left him a path and a vision so that he can avoid the pain and the learning curve that I didn't have that tutelage to be able to do.
Yeah. Well, amazing. Okay. So if you could think about the mentor that had the biggest impact on your life, alive or dead, who is it? And if you could speak directly to him and say something, what would you say?
Yeah, I have 4 mentors that are of that level for me. One of them is Joel, and I talk to him all the time and tell him how much I appreciate that he has become almost like a father figure to me in a lot of ways. And I really respect the way he treats his family and the way that he treats himself and his own mental care. And so I really do my best to model what I've learned from him over the years. Another mentor to me was a guy named Hartmut Henke, who's still alive. It's kind of a funny story. This guy was the first master chef in the entire world. So you've seen the show MasterChef, but when I came up through the cooking world, there were only 60 master chefs anywhere in the entire world. And I was trained by 7 of them. So the one that I went to work for when I got out of culinary school was Hartmut Henke, the #1 first master chef. And he was the biggest son of a bitch you've ever met. And I went back to the restaurant years later with my son, and we walked in there, and the restaurant's now a bar. And where I used to work in the downstairs kitchen is all just storage and everything. I thought he had passed away. I was walking in the park about 4 years ago with my dog, and I'm talking to somebody, a Russian guy, who's a musician, and he works with high-end musicians and things. And he said, I have a personal chef, and he's the best ever, and he's in the American Culinary Federation and blah, 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 and on the Olympic team for the American Culinary Federation. I go, I used to work with Hartmut Henke. It's too bad he passed away. Well, that guy comes back to me the next day. He goes, I was at dinner with my chef friend. He said, Hartmut's not dead. He just talked to him this morning. I go, really?
Man, he's a slob.
Yeah. What would I like to, what I learned from Hartmut, and I don't know if I ever want to talk to him because he's just a very difficult person, but execution and absolute perfection in anything you touch is what his thing was. And I learned a lot. It is something to strive for. I mean, you try and strive for absolute perfection at that level, it's impossible to get, but I think he got it. I mean, he won so many culinary competitions, they wouldn't let him play anymore. He couldn't enter because they knew he was going to win. Like destroy everybody. So it was no fun. He won like 20 years in a row. So those are 2 guys I learned from and I would like to talk to. The third one, and probably the most important, would be my grandfather, who taught me the value of having a positive outlook on life, no matter what.
That is super cool. And also, you have to watch The Bear.
I will watch The Bear.
Because how you were describing that dude, there's a guy exactly like that in that show. I think you may enjoy it or you may be like, this is way too close to home and turn it off. But either way, I think you gotta give it a gander.
I'll watch it. I love all that stuff. I don't have the PSTD, but I think my wife doesn't like it because I'm constantly throwing her out of the kitchen. I'm like, just don't come in here.
Yeah.
This is all organized in a very specific way, and you're going to get burned or stabbed, and I don't want that to happen. So just stay out.
My wife can't cook a lick. The reason she married me is because I actually can cook.
You got the culinary arts skills, huh? Okay. Well, Kirk, what's the best way for our listeners to find you, support you, connect with you? Where are you out there on the socials?
Yeah, probably the best place is go to the website, kirkjaffeconsults.com. On there, it's going to pop up with an invitation to the mastermind. If you're interested in the mastermind, don't worry about what it says. Just put your name and address in there and I'll get it. It'll ultimately take you to an application so that we can get to know each other and make sure we're a fit, because nobody fails that comes through there. And the reason they don't fail is because I do a lot of pre-work. So you get me there. You can always get me here on this cell phone, which is 818-469-2189. You may think that's strange to give up my cell phone number, but this is my personal cell phone. So this is business only.
That's the bat phone number, huh?
That's right. That's the bat phone. So call me at 818-469-2189. Go to the website. If you forget any of that, you can look me up on Google, Kirk Jaffe, Jaffe, and Kirk like Kirk Douglas or Captain Kirk from the U.S. Enterprise. You will find the first, 5 or 6 pages on Google are all me. So you'll get to me. I'm easy to find.
Kirk, is it true that you were Jason Dree's very first client?
I was Jason Dree's very first client in his current format.
Okay.
Yeah. Jason was working on LinkedIn, and I think he had somebody call me. And somebody called me, and I was looking for a coach because, like I said, I'm always in a coaching program most of the time. And he called me, and I said, Jason, let me see what you can do. And he gave me a couple free sessions and made a huge impact that had a measurable result. I said, great. And I've been with him ever since for a variety of different things. And now we partner on things as well. Jason's a great guy and a great platform for getting your mindset straight. I'm not a mindset guy. You don't want to call me if you want someone to talk to you and get your head straight. I'm an execution guy. I'm about making money and putting things in place and making sure they work. And Jason will keep your head straight around how fast it'll spin when you start working with me.
More and more, I feel like Jason is more of a counselor.
It is, right?
Definitely listen to some sessions, but it's been game changing for me. And thank you to that team for putting us together. So appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks to both of them.
Well, Kirk, it's been an absolute pleasure to get to know you. I hope to have the pleasure to meet you in person sometime, and definitely hope that I am in a position where I can join the M3 down the road here. But Owen Dasher, will you see us out?
On behalf of Aiden Bear, Rio Radio, and Ted Kosh, I'm Owen Dashner, and you're listening to Kirk, Don't Work with Jackasses, and Understand the Path to Money. Jaffe, signing off. Jackasses. I about forgot my own name there for a minute. I don't know what happened. I was buffering.
I really enjoyed speaking with you guys.
It's great.
Yeah.
We're talk for another hour here. But
we've had a 3-hour podcast before, just so you know.
I bet.
Oh, actually, I'll redo it. I'll just go let Owen.
Yeah, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I was going to jump in the first question.
All right. Well, okay, I guess I'm changing it.
The producer will edit through that.
Okay.